Hello and welcome back to coverage here from Grand Prix Portland. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Zach Hill. 2 undefeateds left, I believe. These are 2 undefeateds, I can tell you that for sure. Michael Simon on the left playing Living End, playing against Henry Romero, a local player here to Portland, and he's on red, white, blue control with no Cryptic Command.
No Cryptic Commands, which actually would be one of the most powerful cards in this matchup, dealing with both Living End and the repercussions of Living End.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like, okay, you have a board of 5 guys. Well, that's great. Cryptic Command, tap them, and I'll continue about my business, but does not have access to that. And you have to expect all of his spot removal going to be a little bit weak against the actual card Living End as well, because Michael Simon can basically just cast creatures, say, okay, let's start trading, and then cast Living End once to get them all back. But we'll definitely have to see how this matchup goes. Certainly 2 of the less popular decks in the room.
That's right, but currently seem like pretty nice selections. If both of these guys have rattled off 10 wins in a row to get to this point. They're finishing resolving mulligans. Mike Simon on the left-hand side, he is a dedicated Izzet champion. You can see he's got an Izzet hat and an Izzet t-shirt on, so you know what guild he's representing.
Well, which, and given that the one color his Living End deck does not feature his blue, is a little bit of a bluff. But,
yeah, everybody puts him on Splinter Twin, and he starts cycling stuff.
I have to think those Fulminator mages are going to be doing a lot of work.
They do a ton of work against this deck. It's nasty.
Yeah, like not only is Celestial Colonnade one of Romero's principal threats, he really requires access to all 3 colors of mana pretty consistently.
Yes.
If nothing else, just to cast Lightning Angel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cast Lightning Angel, which I didn't think you were going to be saying that.
Yeah, right.
You are correct.
We are not talking about Invasion or Time Spiral block constructed. We're talking about Modern.
All right, Street Wraith is going to get cycled. Draw a card for the turn. And he drew a monstrous Carabid. He wouldn't mind of having that beforehand, but he's going to cycle it now, indicating that he's digging for lands, and he finds one with a Godless Shrine. He plays it tapped, and he ships the turn back to Henry.
That is the thing about this deck, is you can keep a lot of 1-land hands just because all your deck does is cycle cards. And like you only need to get to 3 mana.
That's right.
I will say that Romero's 2 copies of Remand probably very powerful in this matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas his 4 copies of Spell Snare, I think, are literal blanks.
Yeah?
Yeah, because you can't have any 2-mana spells for this deck to work.
That's right. You can't have any actual 2-mana spells, so they're just completely blank. How many does Romero have?
Romero has 4 Spell Snares.
Oh, jeez.
That is a little bit rough.
That could be a beating. Yeah, this is actually a tough one because Henry's built this deck such that it's very creature-centric. It wants to kill creatures. He doesn't have any sweepers in the main or the side, just 2 Pyroclasm, but no Supreme Verdicts in this deck in his 75. At least that I see. And, that doesn't bode well for him, as Michael Simon's going to be able to overwhelm the board with tons of huge creatures that don't really care about helixes and bolts. Sure, you can path a couple of them, but, he can just reload.
No,
and it looks like Henry Romero is onto the scheme here as he just lightning helixed Michael Simon.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, right. I don't think Helix actually kills a single creature in the deck. You can kill a Fulminator mage. It's not quite what you want to be doing.
That doesn't work out well in your favor, no. Is he running the 5/1 with haste?
He does not appear to be running a 5/1. He's running...
okay. You know the one that cycles for a mountain or a swamp?
Oh, the
for 2 mana you can basic land cycle.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I forgot the name of it.
I don't think he's playing
I haven't played that
guy.
limited format in a while, but
Carabid has 4 toughness. It's a 4/4. Deadshot Minotaur a 3/4. Street Wraith a 3/4.
Yeah.
So stays out of Bolt and Helix range quite nicely, actually. Pale Recluse is just a big pop-up.
There's a 4/5.
Now we do see Simon all the way down to 13 life. Now 10 from the Lightning Bolt. Romero could just end the game quickly here.
He could, and this is one of the benefits of the type of build that Henry has here. Remember, I was mentioning that he has shifted his deck towards dealing with creatures in a spot removal sense, but most of his stuff goes to the face as
exactly.
well. He's got a Snapcaster Mage in his hand as well, so he can get that Lightning Helix back, bring Mike down to 7, and have a 2-power guy on the board. Things could turn. Henry looks like he can turn his deck into basically a burn tempo deck pretty quickly here.
I'm just thinking if you can get that Snapcaster Mage in the graveyard, you can actually get an additional burn spell off one of Mike's Living Ends. Not necessarily the most intuitive
it does still enter the battlefield. Yeah, you're right.
So Mike right now passing, he's got Violent Outburst in his hand. He's just looking for a good window to be able to cast it. You have to expect.
Yeah, so do you think we're just going to see Snapcaster Lightning Bolt here?
I don't know that you want to tap that blue mana if you're Henry. I mean, you know about Violent Outburst. You have a mana leak in your hand. Mike's graveyard is loaded up. I think you really just want to untap.
You're right, and it looks like Henry's decided that same line here. I mean, he clearly wants to be aggressive, but he doesn't want to leave himself open for a blowout here.
Right, and now he can Snapcaster. Okay, and we're seeing Violent Outburst come
Violent
down.
Outburst, so what happens is the Cascade trigger is going to go on the stack first. So Violent Outburst is still on the stack, and this is going to happen all the way until he hits a living end.
Barring something very odd.
Yes, unless something got messed up. All right, there it is. Living End goes on the stack, and now Henry has the opportunity to mana leak it, which he certainly will do.
Yeah, right. Thinking about how exactly he wants to tap the mana, but there's absolutely no way in the world you let that resolve there.
Right.
Now, the question is, does Mike have another Cascade spell?
Because he does get to untap here. Now, he unfortunately won't be able to use Demonic Dread as there's no creature target for it.
It does look like he's holding another Violent Outburst. So the question is, does he want to pull the trigger or does he want to cast Avalanche Riders?
I mean,
I'd
pull the trigger.
I'd pull the trigger.
But
like
he doesn't know that Henry's not playing Supreme Verdict.
Right, exactly. He's got the mana for Supreme Verdict. He doesn't know he's not playing Cryptic Command. He's got mana for Cryptic Command. He's at 10 life. And yeah, that's exactly what we're going to see is Avalanche Riders right here.
So you think he's just going to knock out the Colonnade here?
That'd be my guess. He might even keep Avalanche Riders back to block a Snapcaster Mage. I don't know that that's exactly what you want to be doing.
Oh, well, I mean, if that's the case, Henry would have to run Snapcaster for no value then. So
sure.
I think you wouldn't mind him doing that. I mean, would you want to encourage him to do that almost?
Yeah, I mean, like certainly you're not like expecting the valueless Snapcaster Mage. On the other hand, like he's at 10 life.
He is at 10, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and we're going to see him.
Colonnade dies.
Yeah, and he is going to attack with Avalanche Rider.
Get in there.
Go ahead.
All right, so now the question, I mean, like Henry's got a bolt.
He does. He's considering what to do with it. I mean, you kind of want to... He's just going to bolt him, yeah, because Avalanche Riders is very unlikely to be paid for anyway. So
Hey, now Michael does have.
He has 2 Lightning Angels in hand as well.
Oh wow! Which can get Mike to 4, but
which is not the same as 3 here.
Very,
very
different
big
number
gap
from
there.
3.
Poke, he said.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Yeah, I guess. Okay. Now, Henry's still at 20, and Mike's deck, when it does go off, it doesn't kill you that turn.
No.
Generally speaking. So, it's actually in a pretty good spot here. All right, we're going to cycle a Monstrous Carabid here for Mike Simon. He's going to draw a land.
We also see...
Does he have a couple of Beast Withins there?
He does, yes.
All right, here it is. Main phase, while Henry is relatively tapped out, he's only got 1 land available. And he's going to do the same sequence again that we saw before. He's cascading into the only spell in his entire deck that he can cascade into.
And now the way this works, if it's if you haven't seen a lot of these cards before, Living End has no mana cost, so it cannot be cast.
Right.
But that means its converted mana cost is 0.
Right.
Which means you can cascade into it.
Right.
Even though normally you're just suspending that card.
Which is kind of cool, and it's a neat interaction that happened with Cascade after it came out. You can see Living End sitting on the table there, and there's nothing there in the mana cost, even though it is a sorcery.
So we're seeing a lot of creatures enter the battlefield on Mike's side of the board. He's going to be able to kill that Lightning Angel. Also going to be able to blow up another mana source with that Avalanche Rider.
Yes.
Very relevantly, Pale Recluse has reach.
It does.
As does, I think, Jungle Weaver. So he's going to be able to block the next Lightning Angel attack that we know Henry has in his hand.
Yeah, now he doesn't have, I don't think he has quite enough to turn around and just kill Henry, but it's going to be close.
It's going to be really close because Avalanche Rider is going to knock him to 18. And,
well, he still has his Lightning Angel there, though, right?
So the Lightning Angel is going to die to Living End.
Oh, right. It has to go away. Why hasn't it yet?
I think
they're still just sorting everything out.
They're just figuring out what's going on.
Yeah, you're right. It's going to be 18. That's actually going to be because we know that Henry has another Lightning Angel in his hand, but that's not lethal.
Right. Yeah.
Now, doesn't Henry get his Snapcaster back that we mentioned before,
or is it not in the yard?
Graveyard? All right, so he doesn't get that.
And I'm not sure. I thought he was holding it. I'm not positive that he's holding it. He might be, though. A lot of creatures, Avalanche Riders needs a target. Yeah, right.
He's getting so many creatures at once, he's got some spells lost.
Violent Outburst, not a permanent. So what land do you think you here? I guess it doesn't matter a whole lot.
Michael Simon is deciding which land to blow up here. And you know, this is huge. I mean, blowing up this land is massive. If Henry, like, cause let's say Henry had Bolt and Lightning Angel in his hand.
Yeah,
now he can't kill it. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to draw a land to do it. And sure enough, Avalanche Riders gets in there, and all of a sudden, Michael Simon is repping lethal in a very big way here.
Yeah. Right,
Again, 2 reach creatures to keep Lightning Angels off of Michael's back, and it's going to take 2 burn spells here, basically, to kill Michael.
You know, it's really easy to overlook, and I certainly wasn't thinking about it. Thinking about the living in deck, you know, you're like, okay, you play a bunch of creatures as cycling, but you actually have a lot of different options of creatures you can play.
Yeah.
And, you know, something like Travis Wu wrote about recently, like sometimes you just pay 6 mana for a Pale Recluse.
Yes.
And start attacking your opponent with it.
You know, he mentioned that, you know, a 4/4 in Modern is actually really tough to deal with and quite good. Like, sure, Monsters Carabid is very much a limited card, but when it's on the table, it's like, geez, that thing's kind of big.
Yeah, hard casting, it's not your plan A.
Right.
But it's certainly not a bad plan B.
Yeah, I know Travis gets infinite joy out of beating people down with Jungle Weavers. Just hard cast a Jungle Weaver and start getting people.
Look, man, 7 mana.
All right, it looks like Henry Romero has just shipped the turn back to Mike Simon, and
so for Mike here, do you cast a Fulminator Mage or an Avalanche Riders just to sort of force the Cryptic Command issue?
Well, he has no blue.
Oh, he can't
blue.
even do it.
Yeah,
right. Very deliberately blowing up the blue sources to be able to play around that.
That's right.
Again,
and
we know that Henry doesn't know it, but he doesn't know that.
But he doesn't know that. So we see Michael Simon.
Right.
This is always the worst when you're on the other side of this and your opponent's diligently counting out your death. I mean, you don't want to concede because he might make a mistake, but and here's the Avalanche Riders.
The Darwin Castle Invitational card, doing some mighty work here at Grand Prix Portland. They're probably going to get the last blue source. At least forcing action from Henry.
Yeah, so Henry has a Path to Exile. Of relevant cards, he's got a Path to Exile, and he's got an Aven Mind Sensor. So he can block. He can block and kill, and I don't think he dies here. He takes 4, 7. Oh, actually, he does die anyway.
Yeah,
Avalanche Riders is an extra 2
Avalanche
damage
Riders has haste.
So yeah,
we've seen that 2 damage matter a lot in this match.
And in comes
here
the
we go,
team.
boys.
And I think even with a Path, it's lethal.
If not, you have to consider Simon to have made a very big mistake here.
Right.
It's okay. He blocks.
He blocks 5 power guy.
Yeah, I can't imagine Michael Simon's not playing around Path to Exile. I'm sure that it works out.
-5 is 20.
And like even if he has Path and has to chump block, that means the Mind Sensor is not there, meaning it's not going to be able to attack in concert with a Bolt to end the game. So Simon firmly in a commanding
right now.
He's
He's actually verbally talking about exactly that.
Really?
You know, he's saying, okay, you block this. I'm doing 25. And he says, yep, I'm good. I attack with all these guys.
Yeah.
But, you know, he really did. He honestly said, if you have a Bolt, that happens. If you have a Path, this happens. He said those words. Like it was funny. It was like kind of almost mirroring what you were saying, Zach. So, yeah, and he says, yep, I'm good. They all attack.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so this is where Henry goes, yep, you figured it out.
So I'm thinking here, I wonder what Simon's sideboard plan looks like. He's got Gnaw to the Bone, which I have to think that you want against a deck with as many burn spells as Romero has.
Especially with the way that Romero played the first game.
Yeah.
Once he realized what he was up against, he started bolting faces.
Yeah, exactly. I think you might also want the 4th Beast within, because all you're going to want to do is blow up every one of Romero's blue sources.
Exactly.
So that you can make sure to resolve your living end.
Yep.
Now, on the other end, Romero, out of the board, he's got a Rest in Peace. You have to think you're being that, and he only has 1 copy.
That is a
devastating.
great card against them.
I think you want Negate, just because it gives you more weapons against the living end. That's the only card you really have to fight over. Also allows you to counter Beast Within if you need to protect your mana base.
Absolutely.
I can imagine Counterflux. But it looks like we're seeing
let's take a
match
sneak peek here. Yeah, so Shuhei Nakamura on the left. He's playing a 5-color Zoo variant against Vidi Wijaya on the right. And I'm not sure what he's on. It looks like Junk, or maybe it's
Whatever Jund with white is.
Yeah, whatever Jund with white potentially.
Which might even be junk with red. I mean, I haven't done the math.
Well, the red is only, I believe it's only for Bolt and a Johnny Vengeance.
And Thunderball Hellkite.
Well, yeah, we have seen a lot of those. You're right.
This one in particular plays 2 copies. Also, Olivia Voldaren out of the board and Jund Charm. As well as Rakdos Charm. I mean, that's the thing with these lists. It's like easy to look at a ton of them and say, like, oh, this is getting repetitive. There's a lot of individual variety from list to list.
Totally. All right, so Liliana Vale takes down Geist of St. Traft. One of the few ways to really do that, and another Geist of St. Traft for Shuhei follows up.
But, you know.
Man, VD's going to, if he takes a bunch of damage from his Dark Confidant, then Shuhei's going to really get him. Shuhei's got 2 Tribal Flames in hand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Shuhei can represent a ton of damage. One of the very few decks that isn't terrified of a Dark Confidant active on the other side of the board. I mean, can really capitalize on it. Shuhei is representing, actually, between the Angel token and 2 Tribal, he's representing 14 damage next turn.
He is.
Now, he only has 1 red mana source for those Tribal Flames on the board right now, though.
Right.
So we'll have to see what he's able to muster. Definitely not too upset about the Liliana. Definitely has enough cards in hand to be able to work around that. On the other hand, he doesn't want to give up a Tribal Flames, doesn't want to give up a potential red source. And we see a Bant Charm and a Godless Shrine. And we see exactly 1 Bant Charm from Shuhei in his list, the sideboard card that he's brought in for this matchup. Wow, huge Lingering Souls.
Yeah, that's a massive Lingering Souls for VD. He's basically stabilized from... he's put the onus on Shuhei to find a way to get through for more damage or put a lot of pressure on his burn spells. And, you know, Liliana will continue to eat away at Shuhei's hand. I think he found a Scalding Tarn there maybe, so he would have had the second red source, but VD very likely will chump block the if there's an attack from Geist of St. Traft, the Angel token will likely get chump blocked.
So if Shuhei simply just fires off 2 Tribal Flames and says go, VD has 3 Ajani Vengeance that just kill him right now. 3 Lingering Souls that get him to 1 damage. 2 Thundermaw Hellkites that just kill him. So I almost don't mind just like throwing 2 Tribal Flames at his dome and saying like, figure out how to deal with your own Confidant. It's like when you attack with Geist, he's just going to block the 4/4 of the Spirit token. It allows him to get his Confidant off the board if he wants to. I almost just like launching some Tribal Flames and saying, let's leave it to fate.
And it's just, now, he would only get the 1 shot at it. Would he basically be forced to use Liliana?
On himself?
Yeah.
Also could be a thing that happens.
I mean, what I'm saying is if Shuhei goes tribal, right? Yeah. Then now VD knows what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So he's like, okay, I need to get rid of this Bob. And he has a way to do it on board, if not in his hand.
Yeah. I mean, you just, and that's probably exactly what's going to happen.
But I mean, that's not a bad outcome for Shuhei,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, okay. I mean, anytime your opponent is like using their removal spells on their own creatures.
Yeah, and in this case, killing their own Planeswalker to kill their best creature, Also, and it looks like Shuhei agreed with you. He's brought VD down to 4, so he's
trying to
point. Oh, jeez.
Okay.
Goes down to 1.
All right. We are living dangerously here.
But this is actually a really great draw for him, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because he gets to kill his own Bob and then replay Liliana and kill Geist of St. Traft.
Exactly.
That's pretty good.
I mean, he also can tick up Liliana if he wants to and use a Bolt on his own Dark Confidant. That makes Shuhei have to play off the top. On the other hand, Shuhei not exactly short on burn spells. 4 Tribal Flames, 4 Lightning Helix, 4 Lightning Bolt.
Oh, actually, VD actually has 2 Lightning Bolts in hand as well.
Yeah, exactly. But, this is basically a very exciting game. Right? Wow, and the Snapcaster representing lethal next turn.
Wow, critical Inquisition of Kozilek from VD there to take away what would have been lethal damage. This is a very, very tight situation. He attacks with all 4 of his creatures.
So we have to expect the Bolt on
So the Bolt's just going to hit Goyf, so that's fine. He's not Goyf, sorry, Bob, yep. There we go.
Yep, okay. And it is some Spirit tokens doing some work. Yeah, leaving the Arid Mesa far on the other side of the table right now.
Do that so you don't just... there's an Ajani Vengeance in VD's hand, and he can use that Lightning Helix to get himself back out of Bolt, Helix, and Helix range here.
Right. So Tribal Flames or Snapcaster is still live for Shuhei, but Bolt and Helix no longer going to do the job.
That's right. And also, by the way, Shuhei's at 6.
Yeah, right. And
unfortunately, though... VD can only hit for 5 next turn, right? Even if he activates his Stirring Wildwood. So it's going to be a... although he does have a Lightning Bolt in his hand.
He does have a Bolt, although he doesn't have the extra...
He needs a land.
Oh, no, and he can now use the Arid
He can use the Arid Base, although that does open him up to a Bolt of his own.
God, crazy.
This is a close one.
State.
All right, he drew a land naturally, though, so he didn't need to do it. That was a good close one. So... good tight play by VD there down the stretch, as any sequencing mistake there would have cost him the game. I want the would have cost him the game, but looks like VD's won the match 2-0. All right, back to our main match here. Henry Romero on the right-hand side. That's Michael Simon on the left. Right now, these are our 2 undefeated players left out in the field here in Portland. Michael Simon on the left, for those of you just joining us, is playing Living End, a deck popularized by Travis Wu. On the right-hand side, local to Portland, Henry Romero is running red, white, blue control, but it's a different type of build than what we've seen. It doesn't have any Wraths. It doesn't have any Cryptic Commands either. It's a little bit more towards the burn tempo side of things. And that has served him really well in a feature match we had earlier where he played against Paul Rietzel playing Affinity. But in this matchup, his choices are working against him pretty strongly, as Michael Simon was able to commit a ton. All right, it looks like we're going to get a Vendilion click here.
We're going to see a Vendilion click, but which is actually risky, because on the one hand, you can take a Cascade spell out of Mike's hand. On the other hand, you're giving him a target for Demonic Dread. So you have to expect him to take the Violent Outburst right here. But Mike can cycle a Street Wraith and as the draw off the Vendilion click for a Demonic Dread if he wants it, or another Violent Outburst.
You know, and I gotta say, like, the scariest card there, obviously the Cascade spell is the most powerful, but Fulminator Mage is a big problem
Fulminator
here.
Mage targeting either the Colonnade or
his
Romero's
blue source.
Right, exactly. I can't tell. Okay, he has a basic mount, so he's not going to be able to get him off red.
Oh, he does. Okay.
But I mean, still, like there's, I mean, you have to take the Outburst here, but you're not excited to see Mike's hand look like that. Yeah, and that's what he's going to take. But again, Mike has a lot of turns here to draw out.
And this turn, make sure he draws his card there.
Yeah.
Draw from click.
All right, so we see a Verdant Catacombs. You have to expect him to cycle that Street Wraith right now.
Yeah, just get rid of that thing, play a land, and then get rid of Celestial Colonnade.
Thinning a deck out so that his Street Wraith has one more.
Good. Small edges, but no reason to
also
turn down
probably
the
wants
small
black
edge.
mana. Yeah, exactly. Needs the black in case he draws Demonic Dread.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot. I mean, again, I was talking about it just a few minutes ago, but the way that Henry has positioned his deck means that matchups like this get a lot tougher.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Cryptic and Supreme Verdict, both very important cards in this matchup. You know, something is like from Mike's deck, like Deadshot Minotaur, actually very powerful.
Yes, that kills Vendilion clicks.
Kills Aven Mind Sensor, even though that's probably not still in the deck at this point. But you can always just get your opponent's sack lands.
Yeah.
So a big draw, a big cycle for Mike right now off that Street Wraith. Definitely hoping to hit a Cascade card, but not going to be too upset to Fulminator Mage away that Celestial Colonnade.
Hey, look, there's a target for a Demonic Dread.
Yep, and that's exactly what we're going to see.
All right, now let's see. One of the random upsides to this plan that Michael Simon has with the Fulminator Mages and basically with his land destruction package, is that sometimes your opponent just starts missing land drops, and I think that's what's going to happen here for Henry.
Oh, wow, and if Mike can get an untapped land, his Copperline Gorge comes to play tapped. His Dryad Arbor can't tap a mana, but if he gets an untapped land for Avalanche Riders, that might be the game right there.
That could definitely be the game, as Henry has missed his land drop. Now, he does have a mana leak in hand.
He does have, okay.
Yeah, so he is going to be able to get him, and Michael is going to be aware, but he's just going to run the Avalanche Riders out there anyway.
Now, he does have to start being careful, though, because he's taken a lot of damage.
He has taken a ton. Those Street Wraiths, all that stuff adds up really quickly.
And that Vendilion click, like dealing 3 a turn, Mike getting down to 7, like Henry has Helix, has Bolt, has Electrolyze. I mean, especially if he's able to start drawing red mana sources, Mike just might have put himself in a lot of danger here. And the downside with not playing a tap land right there is that he doesn't have access to Deadshot Minotaur next turn, which is actually pretty important against that Vendilion click.
All right, so let's see what happens here. I saw Henry Romero did not draw a land, but he did draw a second mana leak here, so he's in a decent spot. Yeah, Copperline Gorge is going to enter the battlefield tapped, and Dryad Arbor can't tap for mana that turns it enters the battlefield since it's actually a creature and a land. And I don't know if Michael has much of a play here. You can cycle his he's actually going to cycle the Deadshot Minotaur and just try to get there. All right, he just drew into his second Pale Recluse. He can cycle one of those for a basic and play it, but he might as well just play one of the tap lands he has in his hand anyway, if that's his plan.
I think you want to suspend the Living End from your hands. Like, if you draw a Deadshot Minotaur and can resolve it against the click, like, that gives you something ticking up to do. I don't know how I feel about cycling that Deadshot Minotaur, though. I mean, definitely on the one hand, like, you want to draw into a Cascade spell. But on the other hand, like, hard casting that is a very significant threat at this point. Like, Henry doesn't have anything else on the board. It would give you a clock on the battlefield. It would stop the bleeding a little bit. I mean, 7 is just not where you want to be against a deck with this many burn spells.
You know, it's interesting to see the body language stuff here, too, man, because, you know, Mike was playing crisply and quickly and slamming stuff, and I think he kind of felt in control of the game, and I think he sort of felt like, you know, I'm in a little bit of a dangerous territory here, and I've got to be really careful. And now he's putting a lot of extra thought into each of his decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Celestial Colonnade off the top for Henry, which is a fine draw in the sense that it gives him white mana eventually. But right now, Henry's just playing Protect the Queen. He's just like, hey, man, I've got a Vendilion Click. If you can't deal with this, you're going to die.
Now, if he gets the Plains with the Pale Recluse, relevantly, Mike can actually hard cast Pale Recluse next turn.
But it's gonna get
countered.
Yeah, and that'll give him a one-turn window, and it makes tons of cards in Henry Romero's deck live draws his outs.
I will definitely say Henry's 2 copies of Mana Leak doing a lot of work this game.
Yeah, he had one in his opener, and he drew the other, and wow, they've been good.
Right, because, I mean, Mike had to think, you know, paying 2 life for the Avalanche Riders, I think he just thought that it was going to resolve. You know, Henry missing a land drop. You know, a lot of the time it's easy to sort of be lulled into a false sense of security when your opponent's missing lands, only has 2 colors, doesn't even have white mana.
That's right.
But, you know, Henry definitely, I mean, it goes to show, like, you cannot give up. I mean, Henry, you know, not exactly in a classically advantaged position, but he's working with the tools that he has.
Yeah, hey, I mean, he got that Vendilion Click down, and he's like, I'll turn this sideways 6 times. Sure. If you want to let me do that, I'll do that.
So now the question is whether you play your land on tap and go for the Pale Recluse, or you say, okay, I need to cycle into some more stuff.
Not of the bone. I think he just drew that. That basically has to be mana leaked, right?
Right, and then
now,
even if it is, you get to play your land on tap and gain a lot of life.
But it's kind of interesting. Why didn't Mike just play his land on tap to play around mana leak here?
Because I think you're walking into Lightning Bolt if you do that.
Okay, I see.
Now, and I thought that was a Jungle Weaver in his hand. It's possible that Gnawed of the Bone's been in his hand the entire time.
You know, I didn't see when he drew it. I think he just drew it, but I'm not 100% on that. So he could have been playing around this. All right, so mana leak indeed, but it does get flashback. He's going to pay 2 life, go to 2, and now the coast is clear to flash back, and it's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 life points. Well, that changes things.
That does change things a lot.
That's also all of the mana leaks for Henry Romero, and he's still pretty crimped on mana here, as he doesn't have the ability to. He just drew a Snapcaster. He can't Snapcaster and flash back his mana leaks at this point to keep Pale Recluses off the battlefield.
I mean, that being said, like, Vendilion Click's still doing a real amount of work. I mean, Henry's got Electrolyze, which can draw him into some more mana. I mean, his hand is full of live spells. I mean, Mike has a window right now, but the match is by no means over.
It is not by no means over, that's true, but Pale Recluse is a big problem for Henry.
Yes, it is.
It is really big, and he needs paths to be able to deal with it. Now, it looks like he's going to flash in a Mind Sensor. He's also contemplating if he wants to burn here. What he can do is he can send his Vendilion Click in, let it die, and then finish off the Pale Recluse. He has another Vendilion Click. It's just, this is like turns and turns that go by to make these sequences work.
Exactly.
So he has options, but he just, I mean, he's so far behind on mana at this point that it's going to be rough for him to come back. The good news for him is that he's not under any actual pressure at the moment.
Both sides?
Oh, wow. He just 2'd Michael Simon and just said, look, I'm just going to cycle this thing, basically.
And I understand that. I mean, you really need more lands to work with if you're Henry right now. You don't want to lose your click and time walk yourself just to deal with the Pale Recluse, which is going to come back anyway.
Right. He's drawn a land for the turn. He also drew a Lightning Angel, but he's just going to say go for the turn.
I mean, I think if you're Henry, you just want to like be on the burn plan. Like, you've got a lot of burn spells in your deck. You've got Snapcaster Mages. You know, Mike's not really putting you on a huge clock right now.
No, and Henry right now is sitting on Snapcaster Mana Leak, but
So
he finally suspends that Living End. So
and he's going to be able to pay for any sort of mana leak.
That's right.
You know, Henry's able to muster. Now, Remand, very good in this situation if Henry can actually find one. But right now, both players just kind of trying to look to the tops of their decks for solutions right now.
Yep, it looks like even Mind Sensor on end step here for Henry.
Now, something very powerful for Henry that he said, if he casts Lightning Angel and attacks, Mike can block one creature a turn, but he still gets through for 5 damage. And Mike's only at 10 life.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about... Would you have run out the second Pale Recluse? I think Mike has the second Pale Recluse in hand, right?
I like casting it a lot. I also like suspending Living End right here.
Yeah, he's setting up a longer game plan here, but he is kind of leaving himself a little open.
I mean, the thing is, like, I don't actually think you expect Henry to leave in Aven Mind Sensor after game 2. Like, it's not terribly good in this matchup. I mean, there aren't... Wow.
Another Nod of the Bone.
Recently took over as regional.
But I don't think you expect Aven Mind Sensor because you don't have any shuffle effects, so it's really just kind of like a Windrake. And so I think that you want to go ahead and get that Living End suspended because otherwise it's just rotting away in your hand.
That is so devastating. You know, you were just mentioning, Zach, that you thought Henry should go on the burn plan, and that has just been thrown right out the door here.
And you've got to see, like, Mike Simon only has 2 copies of Gnaw of the Bone, so that's pretty fortunate draws for him.
Lightning Angel, go.
To the northwest, please come to the side event stage to take the first slice of this.
That's a Jungle Weaver, and Mike's at the point now where he can, like, again, even though he has a bunch of limited commons in his deck, when you have 7 mana, those are monstrous threats.
Yeah, and he's playing it safe here by just hard casting Jungle Weaver. He's like, look, I am just going to put up a wall. Those guys are going to go away when Living End comes, but he doesn't care.
Yeah, right. He just wants to preserve his life total. And, like, you know, the turn before Living End Resolve, like, he can attack if he wants to. He probably doesn't. Now, like, Henry committing threats to the board.
Why is he doing that?
I'm not quite sure. He knows they're going to die. On the other hand, like, I think he's just assuming that, like, he's not going to be able to cast anything after Living End Resolves because of Avalanche Rider's Fulminator Mage. So I think he wants to just set up a turn where he can attack for as much as he can.
Okay.
You know, and maybe he gets a 3rd Lightning Angel and is able to get some damage through. But, I mean, you know, at this point,
this
like,
is desperation
you're
time.
in dire straits.
And again, Michael Simon is playing conservatively and just saying, look, man, I'm not going to cycle these things. I'm just going to keep you from doing anything to me.
Exactly.
Now, Henry's drawn a Sword of Feast and Famine, which is interesting because it actually will get any of his creatures through.
It does allow him to get through.
Unfortunately, he doesn't have enough mana to cast an equip.
Yeah, well, huge. I mean, it would be very vital for him to get 7.
He has Counterflux in his hand, so he had drawn a Counterflux. That's why he's been building up his creatures. We thought he had the access to Mana Leak, but he actually had better. What did Mike just draw?
He got another Living End that we're going to see suspended right here.
Tick-tock.
Now, remember, Mike has another Gnaw to the Bone in his graveyard still. So, I mean, he can go up to a very, very
Would you just
healthy
flash it back
total.
now while Henry's only on 1?
I think I would.
I mean, what do you really realistically expect to get? And plus, remember, there's a Living End ticking down, too.
Exactly. Yeah,
I think I would just do it.
I think so. I mean, I mean, on the other end, like, you have a lot of cyclers in your deck that you're going to be trying to cycle for that Living End. So
yeah.
Every life point matters.
It does.
But, like, we're going to see this sort of Feast and Famine be pretty devastating here. I mean, Michael will be on essentially a 4-5 turn clock, potentially more if he's able to activate.
Mike says, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, not too bad.
So attack you for 5.
And this is just one of the things I love about the modern format. Like, there's all kinds of interactions that come up. I mean, like, you know, you don't expect, like, Flyers versus Reach.
That's right.
To be the staple of an eternal.
No, totally.
Constructed format.
But we know Michael's deck is a really powerful deck. Yet it runs these cards that you just don't expect to see. He got rid of his Dryad Arbor there. He certainly doesn't mind discarding. There's a lot of cards he doesn't mind discarding in his deck.
No, exactly. And, like, you don't even really want to run the Abomination out there. I mean, the big downside for Mike with that Sword of Feast and Famine is that he can't attack either.
Right.
I mean, Sword of Feast and Famine really doing some work. I am left wondering, too, if he would have liked to have flashed back that Gnaw to the Bone last turn. I mean, I guess he has to think that, like, okay, Romero's going to need to use his counterspell on Living End, and he does have the Snapcaster Mage to flashback Counterflux.
Yeah.
So I think you are in the point where you're really trying to load up your graveyard to get the most value off your Gnaw, because you know you're going to have to race that sort of Feast and Famine, and you need another Living End.
Right.
A thing that it's easy to forget about is that the deck only has 3 total copies of Living End.
Is that right?
So if 2 of them get counters, that means there's only 1 left.
Yeah. Now, he does have a solid backup plan of doing what he's done so far here, which is just casting 6 and 7 mana huge creatures. So it's not like he just loses. This isn't the type of combo deck where he just loses if he doesn't have it, but this is certainly the key interaction.
And I cycles Monstrous Carabid rather than casting it because that card must attack. So very awkward when your opponent has a protection from green and black vigilance creature.
Those are all creatures that he has there.
And he continues to cycle, filling up his graveyard for Gnaw to the Bone. Also, I think he's trying to set up both Living End and Violent Outburst in the same turn and really just overload Henry's mana base.
I see.
Like, Deadshot Minotaur would not be the worst to hardcast right here, but I think he's saying, no, like, we just need to cycle into the relevant cards. I'm going to try and force through a Living End this game. And
this has been a really, really sweet game, by the way.
Yeah, no,
I just want to pause and note that. This has been a great game.
I mean, again, like, very excellent play from both sides of the table.
Yeah, I think
too.
so,
I mean,
too.
we understand why these guys are 10-0. Romero trying to make sure he gets the most out of his mana every turn. We're going to see an end-step Snapcaster on a burn spell? Or no, there isn't even a burn spell to use.
He's going to kick things off by cracking that fetch land, bring him down to 18.
And you have to think, if you're Mike, that if your opponent taps low for a Snapcaster Mage at any point, you just pull the trigger on Violent Outburst. It's like you know about Snapcaster Mage Counterflux.
Right.
So, I mean, Henry, you know, even though he has a lot of mana right now, he has to be very, very careful when he commits to using it. And that's the other thing about playing against the Living End player. Like, you kind of have to assume they have it at all points, like whatever it is, just because so many of their cards cycle.
He just drew Rest in Peace off the top of his deck. Now, and I'll note here that Henry did not, you know, he listened to your advice even though he can't hear you, but he didn't do anything on end step.
Now, interestingly, though, if he casts Rest in Peace, he's actually opening himself up to Violent Outburst because he does not have the mana to Snapcaster Mage back Counterflux. On the other hand, his mana leaks are actually live right now. Which
and look here, this is going to be because he's forcing him to use his Knot of the Bone, right? No, he's going to go for it right now. So here's Violent Outburst. This goes on the stack, and then we're going to see a Cascade trigger go on the stack as well. Wow, this is going to be an intense moment for this particular game here. So
is this an in-step Violent Outburst?
No, this is an attack step. Henry's in his attack step. He's battling with his Lightning Angel.
So and Romero has exactly enough mana to Snapcaster Mage Mana Leak and then cast Rest in Peace.
Yes.
Thus blanking the Knot of the Bone.
The Knot of the Bone
that
it is in his yard right now. So here it is. Snapcaster Mage, Mana Leak. So he got to Mana Leak a Living End, even though Michael Simon has like 8 lands on the battlefield.
And what Mike's setting up, he's saying, like, okay, I know I have another Living End coming in, so I want to make him tap.
Now he also gets in with the Angel, so he untaps all of his lands here.
Right. And then, I mean, you've got to expect a Rest in Peace right now. I mean, there's no way, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Or is that what that card is? Oh, okay.
Oh, well, he decided to snap Counterflux. Okay, I was sure. I thought it was. I might have misseen it because I think you would just do it, right?
Well, yeah, because right now
that's Rest in Peace, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, like, why allow Mike to cast Knot of the Bone?
That is what I don't know.
He did.
No. It was during combat because Henry Romero got to untap all his lands from his thing.
All right, and we're seeing him. Okay.
And he scooped?
Yeah. And I think the reason he's scooping is just because, like, even though he has creatures on the table, he's out of Living Ends. He's got Knot of the Bone, so he to gain some life, but he might deck himself, and there's just no way for him to beat the Sword of Feast and Famine on the Lightning Angel.
So are we assuming that he took out Beast Within I didn't see any when he was revealing all of those things, but when your opponent plays a sword, you get pretty bummed you don't have that.
And, I mean, I would feel like Beast Within is an important part of your plan against counter spells. Because, like, you just want to keep him off blue mana. On the other hand, sideboarding with the deck is just not very easy. You need all of your cyclers.
Yes.
You know, you have to have a critical density of those cards. Those let you look at your living ends. But I mean, and Gnaw to the Bone, very powerful against the burn spell. So, I mean, like, you know, you have to present a 60-card deck, or at least you want to present a 60-card deck. So, I mean, something's got to go, and I could see Beast Within being the card that's trimmed for it. On the other hand, I don't know, like...
Dude, I would leave him in and just blow up his lands.
I would blow up his lands, and I might go down to, like, 2 Demonic Dreads, because that's a card that's actually kind of challenging to make work in this matchup.
Another great... Not with Beast Within.
Not with Beast Within, oh, sure.
Sure.
But, I mean, you could also, like, trim a couple of cyclers. I don't know. Like, sideboarding with the living in deck is very challenging. I mean, that's why the sideboard is, like, 3 4-ofs, 2 Gnaws, and the 4th copy of Beast. Just because, like, this is not one of those decks where you're going to be sideboarding in 8 different cards. But, yeah, I mean, definitely after seeing that sword, you want to have some sort of plan against it. Because it was devastating in that match.
It was. That was an insane win.
That was an insane when the tide really turned on that. I mean, Simon was in the driver's seat for a lot of it, but and Romero, the turning top deck, the sword couldn't cast it because he couldn't afford to. He just didn't have the 5th land. So definitely a lot of back and forth. I mean, you expect when your opponent has a 5/6 and 2 4/5 reaches, and you're a deck based around 3/1 and 3/4 flyers, you're probably not going to be in good shape. But Sword just.
I think he's just got one sword. Yeah, he's got one Sword of Feast and Famine. A fantastic draw for Henry. Kind of doing exactly what he wanted it to do.
Right, and you know, there's 5 swords that are legal to play in this format, and the only one he's playing is Feast and Famine. So definitely doing some valuable work in this matchup, though. Probably not what the card is in the sideboard for, but certainly gets the job done.
All right, so Michael Simon's going to be on the play here for the 3rd game. Here from Grand Prix Portland, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Zach Hill. We've got a great match on our hands here. The last 2 undefeated players, I believe, in the field for round 11 here. These guys have rattled off 10 wins in a row each. And this is the game to decide who gets to keep that title for another round.
Exactly. And very excitingly, 2 undefeated players with some pretty non-traditional decks.
Yes.
I mean, they're both, you know, we certainly haven't seen Lightning Angels all over the place. We've seen Living In before. We've seen Blue, White, Red control before. But
they've got some twists
innovations.
here.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
Now I'm curious to see Michael Simon's hand if he's got what kind of land destruction he has. Again, having played this myself, this matchup myself a bit, if he can just go off with Fulminator Mage into Avalanche Riders, like, it's very difficult to come back from that.
You have to imagine you're just living in fear of Fulminator Mage.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
And again, I mean, he's just able to cycle into essentially whatever he needs. Okay, I was going to say, I couldn't actually tell if he had a second land or not, but it looks like that's absolutely no problem for him right now. He's got Demonic Dres, no targets for him, which is relevant. Pale Recluse, of course, allowing him to get whatever lands he needs. So, I mean, Simon's engine is running nice and smooth right now.
Yep.
I thought for a second we saw Romero top deck a Rest in Peace, but that is not, in fact, what happened.
No, it was a Path.
Path Exile, yeah.
Okay, he's going to play this land untapped. And he's going to say go. So he is representing Mana Leak for the potential Fulminator Mage here.
The Fulminator Mage or the Violent Outburst. I mean, you can't argue with a Violent Outburst right now on a Pale Recluse.
And just getting 8 power.
Yeah. Like 8 power on turn 3 is not exactly weak.
No, and it's very tough to deal with for Henry.
So we're seeing Dryad Arbor come out. That provides a target for Demonic Dread, meaning that if Simon wants to go for it here, he certainly can. And, like, you know, Romero playing the land on tap, but he only has 2 Mana Leaks and 2 Remands.
So now Simon's going to need another land to go for it, though, right? With Demonic Dread?
Yes, and if he pays Dryad Arbor, he can't actually even cast Demonic Dread anyway,
right.
Like you said. So,
all right. So
he's just content to play the cycling game
and just say go. He's going to use this turn to fill up his graveyard even more, and he can go for it next turn.
Yeah, he's gonna ask Romero to tap some mana to do something, and meanwhile just start cycling some cards.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about this deck that sets it apart, is that he's happily filling up his graveyard here. Like, he's doing things. All right, so he's cycling a dead shot. It looks like Henry wants a second.
Booster draft number 7.
He's got a Remand in his hand. Henry does.
Booster draft 7.
And Remand exactly what you want against Living End. Not only do you draw a card, but I mean you put it back in his hand where it's really not very likely to accomplish anything for a long time.
Okay.
So
we're still on end step here for Henry.
Henry can cycle. Is that a Jungle Weaver in his hand? Or sorry, Michael can cycle.
Yeah, he's got a Pale Recluse
too. Wants to as Pale Recluse. I can see an argument for like wanting to keep Pale Recluse in your hand, just start hard casting it eventually.
Yep, I agree.
I think you want to cycle it here. I mean, all you really want to do in this matchup is draw as many Violent Outbursts as possible, I think. But no, decides to keep it.
You know, I don't know if I see that Pale Recluse in his hand. I think I might have remembered the one that is in his graveyard here, so he might not have that option.
So, man, I can also see, like, setting yourself up to start casting Deadshot Minotaurs. You know that all of Henry's offense are these small flyers that you certainly don't mind your Minotaurs just eating.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to forget that that's actually a creature that you can just cast, and it has a relevant 2-for-1 style enter the battlefield effect.
No, that's exactly right. And again, very relevantly survives Lightning Bolt. I mean, like, Romero has a Lightning Angel in his hand. Ideally, you want to be casting it on the 4th turn, but I mean, I don't think you can afford to tap out right here. Now, I think we might see a Vendilion Click from Romero right now, at least get a clock on the board. On the other hand, like, you're opening yourself up to making the Deadshot Minotaur a must counter. You might even just click away the Minotaur right now.
Now, if he clicks, though, he's also opening. He would also be opening himself up to Violent Outburst. So he decides not to do that.
Yeah, really, really hard to do anything. Now, is he going to miss a land drop? Because that could be devastating.
He is going to miss a land drop here. In fact, he's going to discard. Yeah.
Wow.
He's going to pitch a Lightning Angel, it looks like.
I mean, there's definitely some value to pitching some creatures. You know, there's no turn where you can cast it, and at least it gives you a creature on the table.
True. This is the least feel-bad moment of having to discard.
So I think you run your Avalanche Rider out there if you're Mike right now. Like, make him use a counter spell. I mean, you don't want to give him a target for Remand necessarily, nor do you want to give him a window to use his Vendilion Click. But I mean, like, he has to counter your Avalanche Riders, which is one fewer counter that he can use on the living end.
That's right. And remember, it also puts Avalanche Riders in your graveyard.
Right.
Which is a fine place to have it. Now, Remand doesn't do that.
But it lets you cast it next turn.
Yeah, and I don't think that Michael Simon has seen Remand yet from Henry as well. He's seen Mana Leaks aplenty, but it looks like Mike just said go. He's like, look, I don't want to enable you to do this, and another missed land drop here for Henry.
And that's actually, like, Mike, by saying go, just allows himself to gain card advantage from Henry's end step.
Yes.
You know, I mean, Henry can top deck a land, but he also might not. And I mean, Mike's under absolutely no pressure. You might as well just keep playing lands.
Sure.
The more lands you play, the easier it is to play around Mana Leak, the easier it is to cast multiple threats in a turn. You can also suspend Living End and start making a clock tick down.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think, you know, Michael, his deck needs a fairly small window to go off, and he's under literally no pressure here.
Yeah.
He just has there's nothing for him to worry about. He's got as much time as he wants to craft a beautiful hand where he can have like 2 Violent Outbursts or something, you know, whatever he needs to do, where he can go end step and then his turn and get that thing resolved because of Henry's mana problems here.
And if you just keep 3 mana open all the time, you prevent your opponent from ever being able to cast Vendilion Click, ever being able to cast Mind Sensor and put a clock on you. You know, at a certain point, if you're Henry, I think you have to say, like, look, like, I'm not winning the waiting game. If you have a Violent Outburst, you got me.
Yes.
I need to make something happen here because I'm going to lose the game.
I mean, he just missed 2 land drops in a row.
Right.
Like, it's starting, the pressure is mounting for sure. And he has a really nice hand, but he can't sit here forever. He needs to peel lands.
Like, I could almost see if you're Mike, like, just playing Dryad Arbor next turn and just casting 2 Demonic Dreads. Just like, well, you're probably not going to counter them both and get another. Like, Mike either has to hard cast Lightning Bolt here or discard yet another card.
Henry, yeah.
Henry, sorry.
Yep. Moving to discard.
I mean, I give Mike a lot of credit right here. I mean, it's hard to be this disciplined. And yet, I mean, that's exactly what he's doing.
Yep, and there's a Deadshot Minotaur as well.
We know he has Dryad Arbor if he wants to play the Demonic Dread game. On the other hand, like, so that would give him Deadshot Minotaur, Carabinid Pale Recluse versus Lightning Angel and Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster Mage could.
All right, here he goes. The first one, Demonic Dread, targeting Dryad Arbor. Cascade is going to go on the stack here, so that's happening either way. Now, we've seen this before. He's going to go find a Living End here. You said he has one in his hand, you saw?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
So there's one of his 3 Living Ends. One's in hand, the other one's in his deck somewhere. And that's going to have to be countered. And it's going to actually be remanded. Which is kind of interesting, right? Because now he gets it in his hand, right?
Right.
So he didn't have it in his hand before. So it's kind of, Cascade works in a weird way with that. All right, so Dryad Arbor can't block.
So, I just don't know how good. I mean, I guess Resolving Living End is really good here. But, you lose your Dryad Arbor. He gets an Angel and a Snapcaster Mage. If he has Path to Exile, it's, not even very clear that you're in an excellent board state right here. I mean,
he actually hasn't done that much cycling.
Exactly. The Avalanche Riders is not in the yard.
Are now up on the Koth board again.
All right, Henry says, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Pairings are up on the Koth.
I mean, I think it puts Simon in an advantageous state, but now he has no more Living Ends left in his deck.
He's got 2 in his hand.
Yeah. Now, if you had 2 Deadshot Minotaurs, that'd be one thing. You could get that Lightning Angel off the table. But right now, what are you really doing? If Carabinid gets pathed, or Recluse gets pathed, now you're just taking a bunch of damage from Lightning Angel. I don't know that you get that far ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting because normally that deck revolves around doing just that, but in this case, it's actually not that amazing. They were kind of at parity, and he was one removal spell away from kind of giving the edge to Henry here.
I think I would have just spent a little bit more time cycling.
Yeah.
Because now, Henry can cast his Vendilion Clicks with, very little fear. He's got Path for Carabin. It's yeah.
So Henry has pathed all 3 creatures. Michael Simon says, sure. Yeah. That's what he said, and now he's taken 5.
I just think you've got to get a lot more value. I think Mike was exercising very good. That's why you can't really play around your opponent have 2 Path to Exiles either. So I see what he's going for, but you're not in too much of a hurry. And now you're under a really serious clock, and Henry can start pulling the trigger on Mind Sensors and Vendilion Clicks at will.
Yeah, and suspending Living Ends way too slow from this point.
Now
he does have a Deadshot Minotaur in hand, so he can start rebuilding. Pale Recluse would go a long way as well.
Yeah, and Carabinid can block Snapcaster and start attacking. But
Steam Vents Mana Lake, he says. Yep. Wow.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Living End doesn't just win the game when it resolves.
Right.
And Lightning Angel doing some work now. And Vendilion Click not only going to put an extra 3 damage on the table, going to take that Deadshot Minotaur right out of Simon's hand, leave him really with an Avalanche Riders and just some Living Ends that are way too slow to accomplish anything this match.
Players are confirming life totals here.
Yeah. We'll shuffle, but really, some pretty devastating counter magic from Romero. Remands and Mana Leak's doing a lot of work this match.
There's a rest in peace as well.
Not that you even care very much. I think honestly, you want your graveyard so you can Snapcaster a Lightning Bolt. I don't even know that you cast it.
Yeah.
He's going to, but
no.
Yeah, he's saying is this even very good for me?
Yeah, but he does in fact do it.
You would be turn 0. Nice 1-up.
And it looks like they're going to be going to turns here, but I don't know that it's going to matter.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
You're going to see a Deadshot Minotaur.
The rest in peace is a 1.
And Henry's holding another Remand.
He's got a Remand in hand, and Henry really looks to be in the driver's seat here.
Yeah, that Gnaw to the Bone, or is that a Jungle Weaver? Yeah,
that's a Jungle Weaver, which would be fantastic, but it's going to go back to his hand.
Yep. That's the match.
So, but why did he concede?
He was going to take 5 next turn.
And then play Jungle Weaver.
And play Jungle Weaver, yeah. But he only blocks 1 card. I'm not quite clear on that.
Maybe the life totals aren't quite right or something, because I don't think Mike would have conceded there.